welcome in everybody to Untold Sports Stories with Gerardo Byrne. We have a very special guest with us, volleyball player Sarah Dickman. She is also a sophomore here at Earlham College, and what we'll be discussing today is her background into the sport of volleyball, why she chose to come to Earlham, being a local kid, and we are very excited to have her on the show. How you doing, Sarah?
Doing well, thanks.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, before we get started, how you doing today?
Pretty good?
It's good to hear. Good to hear. All right, well, let's get into it. Volleyball player, and actually a well-known volleyball player around here. You know, you're very talented sophomore. Still got a couple more years to go. How did you get into volleyball?
Well, actually, I didn't really get into any type of team sport. Volleyball was my first team sport. In about sixth grade, I kind of played on a Y League because all my friends had been doing it for a few years, and I wanted to join in because I spent my whole childhood doing gymnastics primarily. So getting into volleyball, it was a very low-key team, very easygoing atmosphere, but I did really enjoy it, and I kind of hung with the other girls who had been doing it for a few years. So I thought maybe I found something that was, meant to be. So from there, I played junior high at my middle school. I started playing some club ball at a local club my first year. And then I started to move out of town to a club over in Oxford, Ohio, to kind of improve my volleyball skills out of season. Played in high school all 4 years, and then that takes us to here.
So you got into volleyball because your friends were doing it.
Yeah, I felt left out. They were all having so much fun playing volleyball, and I thought it wasn't a huge time commitment at the beginning, so I thought might as well just jump in, do what everyone else is doing. So.
Do you ever look back sometimes and think, what if my friends were doing maybe soccer or basketball or something? Do you ever think about how maybe that route would have went?
I actually had never thought about that. I'm glad my friends chose volleyball to all play because I know I'm biased because it is the only team sport I've really ever played. But I do love the game of volleyball and how it's really become more popular, especially as a women's sport. Today, you can see NCAA D1 every single year. The crowds are growing exponentially. The hype around the tournament and just their season in general, it's getting a lot bigger every year. So volleyball, it's getting bigger here, U.S., all over the world. So it's exciting to be a part of this sport that everyone else is starting to get really excited about.
You know what? That is a great point because I've gotten the opportunity to not only broadcast and watch you guys play, but I've watched Division I volleyball on TV, and it's not just volleyball players, but women athletes y'all are freaks sometimes with athletic ability. And you said you did gymnastics up until sixth grade. Was that the sport that you were really wanting to get into, maybe down in the future?
I just started when I was very, very young. As soon as I started walking, I was kind of doing the toddler tumbling type classes. Again, just kind of stuck with it when I was younger. Something that, again, all my friends were doing, so it made it more fun that I got to do it with my friends. I spent pretty much my whole childhood in the gym for gymnastics. It was 4 to 5 days a week, 2 to 3 hours at a time. It's an intense sport, and I think it taught me a lot of things, general things about being an athlete and being conditioned. And I think gymnastics is probably, in my opinion, the most difficult sport out there. I mean, if anyone who is out there watching people like Simone Biles do what she does,
yes,
I think it would be hard to disagree because gymnastics, it takes so much strength, coordination, agility. It really encompasses everything that it means to be an athlete to an extreme. So I feel like though gymnastics wasn't my end goal, I don't think really ever. I did love it. But it did, I think, get me to where I am now as an athlete. And without that gymnastics background, I think it would have been a totally different path for me and probably wouldn't even be playing sports today.
You know what? That is a really good point to bring up. Side note, Simone Biles. Wow. Yeah, some of the stuff that woman has done as a gymnast is insane. Did you see that clip in the World Series where she did that flip on the mound?
Yeah, I'm
that
pretty
was
sure they named it after her because she was the first one to do it.
that, yeah, just with as much ease as she did that with, I was just beyond
Yeah.
shocked at that. But when did you start noticing gymnastics, really helped you in volleyball? Because, I mean, volleyball is a lot of footwork, a lot of coordination, and gymnastics, really helps with that. And, I know a lot of athletes, like basketball players, football players, who did gymnastics, ballet to really help with their footwork. When did you start realizing, like, wow, gymnastics has played a big part in my development in volleyball?
Yeah, there was only about a year and a half to 2 years overlap where I was doing both sports at the same time. I don't think I came to the realization of how much gymnastics helped me until maybe a few years ago, kind of in high school, because I always was physically stronger than a lot of other girls on my team in high school. Because lifting, my high school at least, we didn't really do any, we would condition, but we wouldn't do any heavy lifting. So a lot of my strength was already there compared to others, and I think that really did help me progress. But no, I don't think I really noticed it until after I was finished with all gymnastics, how much that really did help me in that aspect.
Okay. When or why did you decide to give up gymnastics, and what factored into the decision of going full in and focusing on volleyball?
Yeah, I ended my gymnastics career, you could say, when I was in 8th grade. So I was just starting club volleyball, just finished my 8th grade season of junior high volleyball, and I loved it. And I wanted to play club, but I also knew that there wasn't enough time to do both, or at least not to do both as well as I wanted to. And it was also a point in gymnastics where I just didn't love it like I used to. I know, especially with the sport of gymnastics, there comes a point where what you're doing is just, it's scary. Honestly, gymnastics is scary. I was starting to do things, come to certain skills that I was supposed to be competing where I just didn't enjoy coming to practice and being incredibly uncomfortable doing what it was I was supposed to do. I didn't love it anymore. And volleyball was new, it was exciting, and I did really enjoy it. And I could see myself doing it for many years, whereas gymnastics, you can only do it for so long.
That is true,
It takes a toll on your body, and I think I had just gotten to that point where I wanted something new. I was getting tired of one thing and getting really excited about another. So it was a hard transition. It was hard leaving gymnastics, knowing how much time I'd put into it. But I'm glad that I did it, and I'm glad I ended it when I did and got into volleyball when I did.
Yeah, I mean, it's always hard to leave a sport when you've invested so much time into it. It's never an easy decision. When you decided to leave gymnastics and go full into volleyball, was that at that moment also the time when you wanted to also maybe play in college, or had that mindset of, I want to take this as far as I can take it, or did that come later down the line? As you said, you started playing because friends started to play it, and normally that doesn't, maybe people don't want to translate that into maybe college, but when did you, fully tell yourself that, okay, after high school, I want to continue playing volleyball in college?
Oh, well, this one's kind of hard because I definitely wasn't thinking during that transition, I want to be doing volleyball all the way through college. My first thought of it being a potential option would have probably been around the end of my sophomore year, going into my junior year. Actually, one of the first people that even kind of discussed it with me or approached me about it would have been Coach Horton here. And at the time when she first talked to me about it, I hadn't really given it any thought. I didn't really think of playing sports in college. I honestly wasn't even aware of the opportunities out there and what D3 really meant, what it was, that it existed. So Yeah, going into volleyball, like in high school, I was just there to have fun and play through high school, because that's what most people, especially at my school, did. You played sports year round, and so that's what I wanted to do as well.
Okay, so let's take that back a little bit. I honestly don't even remember where we're at. So I we'll just go back to you brought up meeting Coach Horton in high school, and that's where she started to guide you to maybe exploring the college route.
Yeah. So at that point, hadn't really thought about college at all or college volleyball at all, and I still hadn't even decided the week before I committed if I wanted to play in college or not. I knew I wanted to, but it was also a matter of what kind of feel I wanted for a college in general, a school program, the size of the school. So, in the very end, it came down to volleyball and how much I wanted to play, um, which is part of why I did decide Earlham.
Okay, and that was actually one of the stories Coach Horton had brought up. Talking about she was talking about how she met you early in high school was when you first got together, and she was training you, correct?
Yeah.
And it's she kept telling me how she as soon as after her first lesson with you, she texted your mom and asked her, "Is there any chance she's gonna stay local and go to school?" And your mom texted her no, no, that there was no way she was staying. And I want you to talk about how Coach Horton developed that relationship with you, and not just you, but your parents as well, to go from a solid no on the first question to where she's now able to get you to come to Earlham.
Yeah. So I did have like lessons with Coach Horton, just working on volleyball in general, a lot of hitting, a little defense in there. And at the time, Coach Lauren, she was a really good resource locally that I could use to improve my game for high school.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, my mom was the first person she did talk to about the potential of me staying. Um, I had never considered Earlham as an option in general as a school. Um, and my parents, it was a rule for them that we got out of town to go to college, and we really got that college experience of what it was like to be on our own. So it was a priority to both of my parents that I left Richmond. And at the time I totally agreed. I didn't want to stay in Richmond. Been here my whole life, so I thought it was a good idea that was a rule that was put into place. So time went on. I came to like a camp. My whole high school team came to Earlham's volleyball camp over the summer. Um, Talked to coach a little bit more then. It was still a no. I'm leaving Richmond. My junior year went on. I decided that volleyball is something I should look into, and I visited many schools. The recruiting process was a really long one for me, not an easy one. It's not for many people. So visited lots of schools, lots of D3 schools, one or two larger schools, not to play, but just in general to go to college, get an education. And it wasn't until my senior year of high school where Coach Horton really tried again, especially near the end of club season, which is in the spring. Near the very end, Coach called me, and she was just, I did lots of visits. I did an overnight one time. I met with the team. Um, but I was never really serious about it. I was kind of just doing it because my parents decided maybe it would be a good idea to come here. Like they weren't against it anymore. Um, After getting like accepted and all of that in the mail, it kind of reshifted my focus, and I thought, well, maybe I'll look into it. I'll give it a real try. And still up to a month right before it was in the mix of schools I was choosing from, but it was never my top choice just because I think the thought of just staying in Richmond for me it was too much. I just really wanted to leave.
I got you.
And so But it just stayed along as I narrowed down schools. Earlham was just always there. And at the very end, it was one of my last club tournaments. We were staying overnight in a hotel because it was multiple day tournament. And Coach Horton calls me, and she was just like, hey, before you tell me anything about your decision, because I was planning to make my decision that weekend, and my decision was gonna be to tell her I'm not coming. And she said, before you say anything, I just want to tell you what I think, because I haven't really gotten to tell you, like, as a coach recruiting you, exactly what I think and what I feel and what I see for you here at Earlham. And so Coach Horton is very convincing.
That's the truth.
Yeah, she had this long spiel, and it really got me thinking. Also, the track coaches at the time that were here and recruiting me as well, they got me thinking too. They both are very, very convincing people. And I took the next like day and a half of playing volleyball at my tournament and just like thinking about the decision. And after the tournament was over, I was like, I love it too much. I love volleyball. I don't want to give it up yet. And I also loved what Coach Horton said to me, and I did love the girls when I visited. And I think all of that combined, I was just like, let's do it. Like, there's really not much to lose. Earlham's a great school academically. I can still live on campus and be like away from home, and I'll be busy doing volleyball and track and just dealing with school in general. So I convinced myself, the coaches convinced me to come to Earlham.
Okay, and before we get back to talking about how persuasive Coach Horton is, let's talk a little bit about the recruiting process. Were you heavily recruited to play volleyball, or for track, or for both? And were you getting recruited by just D3 schools, D2 schools, NAIA schools?
So academically, I really wanted a strong school. So a lot of the NAIA and D2 schools that had contacted me weren't what I was looking for on the academic side of things. So there were a few here and there, but I was never very serious about any of them. It was maybe just an email or two from a coach. It was pretty much only D3 schools looking at volleyball and track. And then it was really interesting being recruited for two sports, because one school might be really interested in you for one sport, but not so much for the other. And I think that was really hard because at the time, track wasn't a priority as well. It really was just volleyball. But there were a lot of schools that would contact me for track, and then I'd be like, well, I really like the school. I'm gonna visit. I'm gonna try and contact their volleyball coach and kind of see where it takes me. So that was difficult, adding that second sport component to it, because finding the balance between the school I like, but also the coaches that wanted me for both sports at the same time. So yeah, there were a lot of schools, mainly in the Midwest. I wasn't looking more than 6-7 hours away. A lot of schools that we play. So it's always fun seeing the coaches again after the whole recruiting process. But yeah, I did probably 10 to 15 visits.
Wow.
Yeah, it was long. It was a long process. There were a lot of, I feel like my problem was there were a lot of schools I would go and I would say, I really like it here, but I wouldn't get to meet the team or like financially, a lot of these schools, as you know, like Earlham, are really expensive. So waiting for my acceptance and then seeing where the financial aid would kind of land was also a major factor in the decision, which was also difficult because you would love a school and then maybe it'd be really expensive. So you had to kind of make those sacrifices in that decision. So that was kind of the process. Mainly D3 schools, and then just kind of weighing the different factors of what each one had. Also, a feel for the coaches. It's really important, even though you're only talking to them maybe 2-3 hours. And when you're there in person, but also like how they communicate with you through email. If they try and call you on the phone, Coach Horton was one of the few coaches that would actually pick up the phone and talk to me. A lot of them would be like emailing me like, hey, like, how are you doing?
Yeah.
But that only gets you so far, and you can't really get a feel for the coach. So it was really nice when I could have that contact with Coach Lauren here. It made me feel more comfortable with her in the recruiting process compared to other coaches in other schools.
You bring up a lot of great points about the recruiting process, and small details that a lot of people don't know. It's mostly focused on obviously the school. A lot of people focus on athletics, and um, actually, a lot of people also focus on how much gear they can get from the school. That is a lot of people I talk to. That is a big factor. Um, Now, quick question. You ain't got to answer it if you don't want to.
Okay.
If it wasn't Earlham, what was your second choice?
For volleyball?
Yeah. Or just school in general. What was your other option between Earlham?
That's also kind of a funny story because I did put my deposit down at IU. I was going. My mom told my family she chose IU. My dad had actually talked to Coach Lauren, happened to see her the week I had decided IU, but he didn't want to be the one to tell her. So he said, you should probably call her. And then that's when the whole conversation started again at my volleyball tournament. So I had actually decided not to come to Earlham at one point, officially decided. And then I changed my mind. So, yeah, going to IU, big state school. It's where my parents went. It's where my older brother is right now. So that was my next choice.
Wow. That is something normally a lot of people don't normally decide to split from their family members and going to a school. And that was also what Coach Horton mentioned, is that your family loves IU and that was the school that she was really trying to get you to pull away from and come here. Now, I do got to ask this question. When Coach Horton is recruiting you, you come here, you meet the team, you know a lot about the school, you're from this area. How were you able to get past the part knowing the school and this volleyball history? The school hadn't won a conference game in quite a while. Matter of fact, I don't think they had won a conference game before Coach Horton got here, or it had been a long time. The history wasn't that good. So how were you able to put that aside and able to come here and play volleyball?
Well, to be honest, I feel like a lot of people in the recruiting process, they're looking for schools that are like successful in their program. But I honestly did not care at all. I wasn't looking at that. I would sometimes look at the school's record after I'd already done my visit, be like, oh, they're not very good, or oh, like they're actually pretty good. And even though I'm from Richmond, I feel like a lot of people in Richmond don't pay a lot of attention to Earlham. They don't know what's going on over here. I didn't know all the things that is happening right here in the town that I was living in. I didn't follow Earlham athletics at all. I honestly didn't know much about the program until I started talking to Coach Lauren more. But I also knew that they were getting better. Looking at the 3 years prior to me coming, our current seniors, they sometimes still talk about their freshman year and how they like barely won any games. And it just seems so foreign to me because ever since I've been here, the program's just kept going up. And so, and it's always just been our mentality to get out there, and our goal has always been a conference championship. So, for me, I feel like the history, not that it doesn't mean anything to me, because I think it's special that I get to be a part of this upward progression, but it doesn't affect me as much as it does some of the upperclassmen, how it affected them when they were first here. So no, I wasn't worried about the history, but I was interested in where the program was going.
No, that's something you don't hear too often, because a lot of people focus, on whether the school is successful, focusing on the history. And I can tell you that as a football player, and a lot of the football players I talked to, they definitely knew the history coming here, and that's why a lot of people decided not to come here. But you also got those people that come here, wanting to change, wanting to be a part of the change in culture. And you are fortunate enough to where you've gotten to be a part of that. You've seen the school progress every year, and I've been lucky enough to see it. Last year, you guys make the conference tournament for the first time, and even hosted a first round game. And while that might not have gone the way you guys have wanted it to, you guys still did it. You went from winning no games in conference to you're in the conference tournament. So talk about how you've seen the program grow. Coach Horton, how she's done a terrific job here at the school from her first year to now. And even now, you guys are still continuing to grow.
Yeah, I think that Coach Lauren, I've heard her talk to a few recruits about how sometimes their question is, how long do you plan on staying here as a coach? And there in D3, there's, as everyone can tell, there's a lot of coaching changes that go on all the time. Coaches moving around looking for bigger, better opportunities. But Coach told one of our recruits the other day, I'm here to stay. I'm here to see the program grow, and I'm here to make the national tournament, not only win conference tournaments, but our goals are set pretty high looking into the future. And Coach is working really hard to recruit people who see that vision too and want to be a part of it. So I think that's the biggest thing. Everyone that's on the team, associated with the team, we're really invested in making this a long-term successful program, and it not just being like a few years, oh, they were okay a few years ago, but we want to win, and we want to make it a lasting winning program. And I think that's the difference, is we're here to stay. We're here to work hard and make it happen, and we're not looking for other things. We're keeping our eyes set here on Earlham for the future.
All right. So this past Wednesday, you guys beat a very good Rose Holman team, and I was broadcasting that game and looking at the standings, and that pretty much clinched you guys into this year's conference tournament. So back-to-back conference tournament appearances, and tomorrow's the final regular season game. You win that, you get to host another playoff game for conference, and I think you guys got a really good shot of winning the conference. And I want to take that back to a week or two ago when you guys played Transylvania. And Transylvania is a very well-known athletic college around here. They're ranked in the country. I think they were ranked 19 or 20 when you guys, faced them. And, I was talking about this with Coach Horton. To people on the outside who maybe look on the website and see that, it was a 3-0 sweep, that it didn't look like that, okay, that was much of a game. But to somebody like myself that was here, who got to see that every game was competitive, and every game, you guys were right there, and I can see it on your face. You're remembering that game, that you guys were right there. Does that also show you the progression of the program? And does that also, what does that tell you to where, like, okay, we're competing now with some of the best teams in the country, and even some of the preseason tournaments? I don't remember what team you guys played, but I was told that you guys played some very good competition down there, highly qualified opponents. Does that show you, like, man, we're almost ready to take that next step to that next level? And does that make you feel excited that, now we went from the laughing stock to where now we're competing with nationally ranked teams?
Yeah, we did play. I think you're referring to the Ohio Northern game.
Yes.
They were ranked when we played them, and we took one set off of them. We lost 3-1. And even coming out of that game, the whole team felt like we defeated ourselves. It wasn't even like they came out and killed us. We did not play well that game, and we still managed to get a set off of a top 25 ranked team. And not only just one team that was ranked, but they're consistently ranked, and they're consistently winning their conference, a very good volleyball conference. And we took that loss in a lot of ways. Very obviously, since we knew we didn't play well and we still got a set off them, we were like, wow, like we're right there. Like, we are ready to compete. We're ready to see our name with a ranking next to it. And then I think it also helped going into the Transylvania game. We knew that, yeah, they were ranked, but we've played with ranked teams. We've seen ranked teams, and we know what it's like to play them. And it's not this, like, distant team, and it's like, oh, my gosh, they're so good. Like, I'm nervous to play them, but we're ready to get after them and steal their spot, to steal their ranking, to say, yeah, we beat a ranked team. Let's do it again. No, we haven't done it yet, but I have full faith that we can very soon. I'm excited for the chance to maybe play Transy again, depending on how everything in the tournament lines up. I think our whole team wants another shot at them because, as you said, if you watch the game that when we played them here at home, it was a really good game. It was super competitive, back and forth. I think if you weren't aware of rankings or anything at all, you would think that we're up there in the same caliber of volleyball, which is exciting for all of us. And I think we all know that on the team. We all feel it. And so it's no longer going into these games like, oh, like we're the underdogs. But like we have we have a real shot at taking one of these teams down. So we're really excited and kind of hopeful that we get another chance at a ranked team this season.
Of course, but one game at a time.
One game at a time.
Always got the mentality, never look ahead, because that's how a lot of teams end up falling, when they look ahead to where they look past an opponent. My next question that I want to get your opinion on, because I had a really good conversation with Coach Horton about this specific topic, and what it was looking at Division III athletes, and it's also the reason why I started this podcast was because, small school athletes, you don't really get to hear a lot about their backgrounds and their stories, to where you get to hear a lot about Division I stories and, girls who are very talented and stuff like that. And I say that, Division III, you got, women and men that are just as talented, but maybe, come from a smaller area to where they weren't able to get exposure, or couldn't get to go to camps, or you play for a high school that doesn't get national spotlight or something. And I've seen athletes, you work just as hard as Division I athletes. So I want to get your opinion about that. That D3s and D2s are often looked down upon as kids that don't have as much talent, and a lot of kids do, and you work just as hard as them. So what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, that's a hard one, because within comparing just strictly D1 to D3 and D2, there's also different types of D1, because if you're talking volleyball, there's obviously the Big Ten is like one of the greatest volleyball conferences in the nation. And obviously all the girls on there, they've likely been training for a really long time. They have the physical attributes to be good. They're like 6'5" or whatever. And they are naturally athletic usually as well. But yeah, it also comes with like where you grew up and what kind of opportunities are around you. There is a club in Muncie, Indiana, and they're known all over the country for volleyball and producing these amazing volleyball athletes. They've got girls on major teams, major conferences all over the country, and there is some to it about who can be a part of like those types of clubs. It costs money to be a part of those clubs. Costs a lot of money, costs a lot of time and commitment from your family. So I can see, especially today when club sports are kind of how you get noticed, how you get good, there is definitely a divide based on where you are, where the opportunities are, what kind of resources you have to become better. Yes, I would say that there are some athletes in D3 that if they had the same opportunities as other kids in D1, they would be right there with them. But then there's also some where they are just really good at what they do, or maybe in D3, they worked just as hard as the D1 athletes, but naturally they're not as good, so they are still in D3. So I think it really depends on the situation, on the person, but also I do think that opportunities and resources play a major role in where athletes can get to in the NCAA stage of things.
And another argument I have is, when you hear a lot of high school kids or graduates talking about, oh yeah, when you, like I hear an example, like when you play, pickup basketball or, just playing like a pickup game in general, and you look at a guy like, oh man, he went D1. Like, that's you hear a lot of that phrase. And I think another argument I have is people maybe sometimes get it confused that because you didn't play for like a big D1 conference in front of thousands of fans, that you still don't get a good experience with the D2 or D3 NAIA program. And I want you to talk about your experience, because when I've seen in volleyball games, yeah, it's not a sold out hundreds of thousands of people in the crowd, but it's still a highly competitive game. The crowd is into it. Do you feel like you've gotten a good experience so far as a D3 athlete?
Oh, of course. I've talked to it with about this with some of my friends on the team before. I would not want to be a D1 athlete. The amount of time that they put in, I already feel like with what we're doing, I have no time for anything but school and volleyball. But I love that aspect. I love being busy. But I don't get how they have to travel as much as they do, and they put as much time and like outside of normal practice time into being an athlete. But I don't know how much they're getting out of school. I know that school, like Earlham, is very academically challenging, and that was important to me. And it also depends on the program and the athlete, again, like in D1. But I want to make sure that I'm getting the most I can academically out of college, because in the end, that's what I'm here for. And I know for a lot of D1 athletes, that's not what they're there for. They're there to play whatever sport it is that they're a part of. So I love my experience as a D3 athlete. I think, honestly, I would be bored if I didn't get to play sports in college, but at the same time, I don't need to be spending what seems to be every waking hour playing volleyball, running track, thinking about those things, and I don't have to feel bad about wanting to spend a lot of time working on school, because everyone is in agreement that that's what we're here for. So there's no pressure here to want to do well academically. So I think that's probably the best part about the D3 experience.
All right, just gotta go about a few more questions, and then we'll wrap it up. I want to go back to a point you brought up earlier. You didn't want to stay local, and that's a very different outlook that most kids that I've talked to. A lot of kids are more afraid of maybe going to a far school, getting away from their parents from the first time. You don't seem to have any of that in you. It seems like, after growing up in an area for so long, you want to go explore, different areas of the country. And how did that also have a big impact on maybe why it was so hesitant on coming to Earlham?
Yeah, I just do totally agree that part of going to college, it's not only learning what's in your textbook, but it's learning about how to do life on your own, because that's what you have to do at the end of these 4 years. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of like a nice halfway in between, where there's a lot of people here to help you out with that kind of thing and figuring it out, but you're still kind of on your own. So yeah, I did want to get out of Richmond in that aspect, but I think I was too focused on like the actual location and less about what it meant to be on your own, because I'm not going home every week. My parents sometimes have to text me to remind them to give them a call. They do come to my games, so I get to see them a lot, but yeah, they're not helping me do my homework, reminding me to do this or that. So I think that my original hesitations about staying in Richmond and not going farther away was because I thought I wouldn't be on my own. But even though I'm just, a couple minutes down the street from where I used to live every day, I'm still doing everything on my own. So I don't think that I lost that aspect of things.
I understand that because I went to a junior college, and it was about hour or so away from where I lived at, and I didn't go home for like 3.5 months. And when I tell you, my mom wanted to kill me for that. She didn't like that I always stayed away from home. So I understand, getting the text message, hey bro, make sure you get the call every now and then. So this season's not over, and we hope that you know you win the conference and you get to go to the tournament and stuff. Um, but after this season, you got 2 more years left, and I think, talking to people around here, they see the potential this team can have in the future. You have some very talented sophomore, freshmen, and even juniors. You have this year's senior class and last year's senior class, and even the seniors before laid the foundation of this program. Where do you see, what new heights can you see this team achieving while you still got 2 more years competing at Earlham?
Yeah, like I said, we've got our sights set on, whatever's next. Our most immediate goal has been conference tournament. I think, no matter what happens this season, it's going to be our goal again next year. We're going to be, therefore, winning tournament would be getting us to the national tournament. And just keep chipping away at those milestones, like win a game at the tournament, anything like that. It could even be within a season. We're starting to get a harder schedule. We're playing more difficult teams within the season, so maybe our record is looking kind of the same for the past 2-3 years, but the competition is a lot higher. And so I think even within a season pre-conference, we have big goals to be ranked, to be talked about in the way that schools like Transy and Ohio Northern are talked about. We're just working on making our way up there, step by step, not looking too far away, but also having our sights set on high things in the future.
Respect, and I will be keeping in touch to see how that's going and if those goals are being met from the program. And a big thing you brought up was academics. You're here for not just volleyball, but to get your education. And I know you still got 2 years of school 2.5 years school remaining. And let me tell you, the school year does go fast. What are you wanting to do, after you graduate? Are you looking to go to grad school, maybe continue playing, or, what avenue do you want to explore after you graduate?
Definitely some kind of grad school after the 4 years here. I have no idea what I want to do. I am a bio major, interested in that kind of thing, but I have no idea at the moment. I know that volleyball competitively I'll be finished with after the 4 years here, but I'd still love to be involved. I could see myself, coaching in the future. I do love volleyball, so I can't see myself leaving it anytime soon. So I would love, I have even discussed with my teammates getting a referee license, and maybe in grad school would be a good way to make a little money, is to go watch some of the big volleyball tournaments and get to ref the younger generation that is coming in behind me. I would keep going on school after 4 years here and hopefully keep staying involved with volleyball in some way.
And that is very good to hear. Well, Sarah, I appreciate you coming on the show, and appreciate you, telling your story and telling your whole background into the sport and on why you decided to stay local and come to Earlham, and, your experiences so far at a D3 school. Appreciate you, like I said, coming on and just, telling everybody, your story, and people watching, maybe get to learn, a lot about the recruiting trip and maybe why it's not such a bad thing to stay local, or that you don't have to be afraid to stay local. Well, everybody, appreciate you tuning in and watching. This has been Sarah Dickman. This is Untold Sports Stories with Gerard O'Byrne. We will have more content up for you and later down the line with more guests. We appreciate you tuning in. If you like what you saw, please hit that subscribe button and like button, and hope you all have a great day.